Merry Christmas, Naomi. I hope you didn't buy any expensive gifts this year, because you're going to need to make this severance check stretch. The laughter that followed didn't come from a comedy club stage. It came from the throat of Julian Thorne, the CEO of Thorne Analytics, and it echoed off the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the 42nd floor penthouse office like a gunshot in a library. He held out a thin, white envelope, not the thick, heavy packet containing a bonus check that everyone else had received, but a single flimsy sheet of paper that signaled the end of a career. Naomi, a woman who had practically lived in this office for 5 years, who had missed birthdays, anniversaries, and her own health checkups to build Julian's empire, stood frozen. The festive red and green lights of the office Christmas tree reflected in her dark eyes, but they didn't look like joy tonight. They looked like warning signals. She reached out, her hand steady despite the sudden coldness seizing her heart, and took the envelope. She didn't need to open it to know what it was. The silence in the room was absolute, the kind of silence where you can hear the ice melting in a forgotten drink. Welcome back to Her Secrets, Her Stories. I'm your narrator today, guiding you through a tale that reminds us that sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't a sword, but a signature. If you believe that dignity is something no boss can take away, do me a favor right now, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It helps us bring these stories of justice to light. And I want to know who is listening. Tell me in the comments, what is the worst gift you've ever received from a boss? Let's talk about it. Naomi looked at the envelope, then up at Julian, whose smirk was as polished as his Italian leather shoes. "You're firing me?" she asked, her voice quiet, a stark contrast to the boisterous holiday music that had been playing moments before. On Christmas Eve? Julian took a sip of his scotch, enjoying the audience. Let's call it strategic restructuring, Naomi. We're pivoting. And frankly, your salary is a weight this balloon can no longer carry if we want to soar in the new year. Besides, I thought I'd do you a favor and let you know before the holidays, so you can ... adjust your lifestyle accordingly. The cruelty wasn't just in the action. It was in the timing. It was calculated. Julian knew that Naomi supported her mother. He knew she had just put a down payment on a modest brownstone in Brooklyn, a dream she had saved for since she was 22. To do this now, in front of the entire staff, the junior analysts she had trained, the intern she had mentored, the board members she had dazzled with her Q3 reports, was an act of public execution. The room watched, breathless. Some looked away, ashamed of their own relief that it wasn't them. Others, the sycophants who mimicked Julian's every move, smirked, smelling blood in the water. Naomi was the brilliant black female executive who had intimidated them with her competence, and seeing her brought low was a twisted holiday treat for the insecure. But as I watched from the corner of the room, I saw something they didn't. I saw that Naomi's shoulders didn't slump. I saw that her breathing didn't hitch. She simply nodded, slowly, as if confirming a hypothesis she had long suspected. "I see," she said. "Strategic restructuring. Does this have anything to do with the glitch in the algorithm meant for the Asian markets? The one I warned you about last week, the one you told me to ignore?" Julian's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, his eyes darting to the board members present. "Don't be bitter, Naomi. It's unbecoming. This is about performance. We need fresh vision. Now security is waiting to escort you. You can take your personal items, but leave the laptop and the phone. Those belong to Thorne Analytics." He gestured toward the elevator, dismissing her like a waiter who had brought the wrong order. "Oh, and Naomi? Try not to make a scene. It ruins the festive mood. A scene, that's what he wanted. He wanted her to cry, to beg, to scream. He wanted to be the calm, rational leader dealing with an emotional ex-employee. It would justify his decision. It would paint her as the angry black woman he had whispered about in closed meetings. But Naomi Vance was a chess player in a room full of checker pieces. She turned, not to the elevator, but to her desk, the glass desk that sat in the center of the open plan office, visible to everyone. She walked with a rhythm that was almost hypnotic, the click-clack of her heels the only sound in the room. She reached her desk and began to pack. She moved with deliberate slowness. She picked up a framed photo of her late grandmother. She wiped the dust off the glass with her thumb. She placed it in a cardboard box. She picked up her Analyst of the Year award, a heavy crystal pyramid. She looked at it, catching the light, then placed it in the box. Every item was a memory, a testament to the thousands of hours she had poured into this company. The silence stretched. It became uncomfortable. Julian shifted his weight. He had expected her to run out. Instead, she was making them watch. She was making them witness the erasure of her presence. She was forcing them to acknowledge that they were discarding the architect of their success. A young intern, Sarah, whom Naomi had helped just yesterday with a spreadsheet, took a half step forward as if to help, but a sharp look from Julian froze her in place. Fear. That was the currency Julian paid in. Not respect, not loyalty. Fear. Naomi finished packing. She put on her coat, a beige trench that she had worn since her first interview. She picked up the box. Then, she picked up the envelope Julian had given her. She walked back towards him. The crowd parted. Julian laughed nervously. "Coming back to beg?" "It's done, Naomi. Go home." Naomi placed the box on the catering table, right next to the untouched shrimp cocktail. She pulled a pen from her pocket. "I'm not begging, Julian. I'm ensuring protocol is followed. My contract states that upon termination, I must receive a written acknowledgement of the separation date signed by the CEO to process my COBRA and unemployment. Since you're doing this effective immediately, I need your signature now, unless you want me to come back on Monday." Julian rolled his eyes. He snatched the paper and the pen. "My God, you are a bureaucrat to the bitter end. Fine, if it gets you out of my sight faster." He scribbled his signature on the termination notice, a large, flamboyant scrawl that took up half the page. "There, you're fired. Officially, now get out." Naomi looked at the signature. She blew on the ink gently to dry it. She folded the paper with the precision of origami and placed it securely in her inside pocket. Then, she looked at Julian, and for the first time that night, she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a demolition expert who just watched the fuse reach the dynamite. "Thank you, Julian," she said, her voice projecting clearly to the back of the room. "You just triggered Section 14, Clause B of my employment agreement." Julian frowned, the scotch glass pausing halfway to his mouth. "Section what?" "I don't read the fine print of every middle manager's contract." "You should," Naomi said, her voice gaining a steely resonance. "Because when you hired me 5 years ago, the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. I was the only one who knew how to build the predictive model that saved you. And because you had no cash to pay me what I was worth, my lawyer inserted a golden parachute clause. It states that if I am terminated without cause, and strategic restructuring is legally defined as without cause, all of my unvested stock options vest immediately." The room went from silent to confused whispering. Julian scoffed. "So what? You have a few thousand shares. Cash them out. Buy yourself a used Honda. Get out." Naomi shook her head slightly, almost with pity. "No, Julian, I don't have a few thousand shares. I accepted a lower salary in exchange for equity. I own 15% of the outstanding shares of Thorne Analytics. But here is the kicker, ... She took a step closer to him. "The clause also states that upon termination, the company is obligated to buy back those shares at the current market value within 24 hours to prevent a hostile entity from acquiring voting rights. It's a liquidity protection clause. Or rather, it was meant to be." Julian's face went pale. The arrogance drained out of him like water from a cracked vase. He knew the stock price. He knew it because he had spent all morning bragging about it. It was at an all-time high, inflated by the holiday sales projections Naomi had written. 15%, double quotes Julian whispered. He did the math in his head. The glass of scotch slipped from his fingers. It hit the carpet with a dull thud, spilling amber liquid over his polished shoes, but he didn't notice. At today's closing price of $240 a share, Naomi continued, doing the math for him, out loud, for everyone to hear, that puts my buyout package at approximately $82 million. A gasp ripped through the room. It wasn't just a gasp. It was a sound of collective shock. 82 million. And since the company doesn't have $82 million in liquid cash because you spent the reserve on the new headquarters and your private jet bonus, Naomi gestured around the lavish room. This termination triggers an automatic liquidity crisis. The bank will freeze your corporate accounts the moment I file this document, which I already did, digitally, 2 minutes ago. As if on cue, the phones in the room began to buzz. First Julian's, then the CFO's, then the board members. It was a domino effect of digital panic. Julian scrambled for his phone, his wet fingers fumbling with the screen. You can't, he stammered. I can, and I did, Naomi said. You wanted to fire me to save my salary? Julian, you just bankrupt the company to fire me. The CFO, a frantic man named Marcus, ran up to Julian, holding his tablet. Sir, the accounts, they're locked. The line of credit has been suspended. The algorithm, the automated risk management system at the bank, flagged the liability. Julian looked up at Naomi, his eyes wide with terror. He looked at the woman he had tried to crush, and he saw a titan. Naomi. Wait, he choked out, stepping over the spilled scotch. Let's talk. I was hasty. It's the stress. The holidays, we can tear up the letter. You're not fired. You're promoted. VP of Operations, double salary. He reached out to grab her hand, the hand of the woman he had called a burden 5 minutes ago. Naomi stepped back, avoiding his touch as if he were contagious. I'm afraid I can't accept, Julian. I don't work for bankrupt companies. Besides, she picked up her box of belongings. I have a lot of shopping to do. I hear the real estate market in the Hamptons is lovely this time of year. She turned to the stunned room, to the colleagues who had watched her humiliation in silence. Merry Christmas, everyone. I hope you all kept copies of your resumes. And with that, Naomi Vance walked toward the elevator. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. The sound of chaos erupting behind her was the only exit music she needed. She heard Julian screaming at his lawyers. She heard the CFO yelling at the bank. She heard the shattering of the fragile illusion of power Julian had built. As the elevator doors closed, cutting off the view of the panic-stricken party, Naomi finally let out a breath. She leaned her head back against the cool metal wall of the elevator and closed her eyes. She wasn't just rich, she was free. The $82 million would be transferred. The contract was ironclad. She had written the algorithm for that too. Thorne Analytics would be sold for parts within the month. Julian would face investigations for the mismanagement of funds that her exit had exposed. But none of that mattered to her anymore. The elevator dinged at the lobby. The security guard, unaware of the drama upstairs, tipped his hat. Merry Christmas, Miss Vance. Working late? Naomi smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Not anymore, Joe. Not anymore. She walked out of the building into the snowy New York night. The air was crisp and cold, biting at her cheeks, but she felt warm. She hailed a cab, placed her box on the seat next to her, and watched the city lights blur past. She thought about the toy she could now buy for her niece, not just a toy, but a college fund. She thought about her mother's mortgage gone. She took out her phone and blocked Julian's number. Then she opened her banking app. The pending notification was there. It was the most beautiful Christmas card she had ever seen. Naomi Vance had been given a pink slip for Christmas, and she had turned it into a winning lottery ticket. She proved that in the corporate world, the person who holds the pen isn't always the one who holds the power. It's the person who reads the fine print. And as for Julian, Well, rumor has it he spent Christmas Day not in his penthouse, but in a lawyer's office, trying to explain to the board how he lost an empire in 10 minutes because he refused to pay a Christmas bonus. So remember this story the next time someone tries to make you feel small. Remember, Naomi, silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's just the countdown. If you enjoyed this story of corporate justice, make sure to share it with a friend who needs a win today. And don't forget to subscribe to Her Secrets, Her Stories for more. I'm your narrator, signing off. Stay sharp, read your contracts, and Merry Christmas.